So, what I would, while we're still on the topic of the corporate workspace and the issues that we've discussed, what I'm also keen to understand is from your perspective, what are the key course corrections that men need to make in the workplace in order for us to progress further in the tangible gender equity in the workspace? And what role women also have to play in that? Because at least from what I've picked up, it's not that our gender inequality issues or the issues that we face in the workspace from a female perspective are solely because of men, right? There's a construct that women have also bought into that helps perpetuate the situation that we see.
So from my side, I would say it all actually stems from mindfulness from both men and women. So men being mindful of the fact that I'm in an environment where I coexist, and females also identifying that. And I say this based on examples where we, in an environment where you work with males who have wives or sisters or whoever, and they know and understand what they go through in terms of you're raising children, you are coming to the office, you're working and all this, and yet you don't have the same empathy for your fellow female colleague, and yet you see that in your wife or your sister. But you do not identify that or are not aware of it, or I don't know how it's almost as if you forget. It's like you have blinkers and yet it's happening in your own house. But because you're not engaging and you're not the person who's taking care of the children, etc., you forget that your female colleagues are going through that, and they're doing it in a time where we're all working from home, so it's even doubled. And it's just a sad thing that actually you see it with your partner. Why would you not see it with your colleague? So it's just mindfulness for me. It's just like, start there. Just be mindful of the fact that, yes, I'm lucky that my wife's running around taking care of it, but my fellow colleague is going through it, and she's the person who's dealing with it. Right. So just being mindful of the fact that, guys, it starts there, just by acknowledging and being mindful of the fact that, guys, this is the reality, and we can all play a role. Because if you understand that it's tough for my colleague to be in a meeting at 4 o'clock, then understand that and don't schedule a meeting at 4 o'clock. You know, it's crazy hour. You know, it's crazy hour because the kids go bat and they lose their minds. It's crazy hour. So acknowledge it and realize that that's what happens. So I think for me, it's just basic mindfulness.
Thanks, Lynette. I agree with you on that point. I have to say, and just for a little bit of context, I've been out of the country for 8 years and out of corporate for much longer. So I have this experience where I was exposed to something, say, 16 years ago, for example, that has now, as I see it, back in corporate, being back in corporate, there is an evolution that's taken place. And it's got to do with the generations that are now in power. For example, my current boss, he is absolutely mindful. I'm very lucky to have him. He's mindful, he's got an open door policy. I can speak to him about things that I see are good or bad, need improvement. And he actually takes action where he thinks he can, and where he can't, he takes it further to the group where he's, at his executive level. So I think there is a shift. I'm thinking of 2007, 2008. I was in the motor industry, typical boys club. Okay, if we're talking about South Africa motor industry, male-dominated industry. When I look at where I was then, how my voice wasn't heard compared to where I am now, where I can approach my boss and be like, dude, I'm not happy with this. Maybe I don't understand. We can have a conversation about it. There has been a generational shift in terms of more open, more engaged, more aware executive level leadership. Okay, my boss is a few years younger than me, so that's actually giving me a lot of hope that things can change. It's like a whale turning over, but there is change. To agree with Len, you need people who are open to listening, open to considering that there are actions that they can take. Each one of us needs to actually step up. Not only those who are in power, but for us to show them, hey, there's an issue here, help me put words to it so that others can be aware of it. And on their side, I have the power. Let me see what I can do. It makes us, creative. It pushes us forward. And that's what I'm seeing from where I am. So there is hope in the system, if I can just put that part out. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sashia. I like your foundation, Lynn, where he spoke of mindfulness and also the fact that you will not be in that position forever. You will retire, and how you treat people is how they will treat their subordinates, and so on and so forth. So leave that legacy where and teach people to understand that women are coming up. Women are also coming for the same position. Let's play a fair game. Let's level the playing field and just leave those legacies where you want to be remembered for the positive impact that you had on black women, professional women in the workplace, and pass it on. Because if you're horrible, then you're raising horrible bosses. Whereas if you are mindful, then it goes further down.
Thank you, ladies. Yeah, I'm also going to stay on the mindfulness tip because I absolutely love it. But again, I'll always bring it back to my personal experiences. For me, I've generally always worked in enabling environments. What I mean by that is you have bosses who will assign you tasks or who will assign you to a team to complete or fulfill a task, and they are not judging your productivity or your output in how much time you're spending at your desk, but on the quality of the deliverable that you produce. I learned this when I was walking from coming to grab a bite at lunch, and I bumped into my boss, and he's like, "Come, let's take a walk to the mall." And I'm like, "But I got work to do." And he's like, "So, let's go." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Dombi, I need you to learn one thing and to always keep this in mind across the board in everything you do, is when you're given something to do, it's how you do it, how you perform, and how you execute, not when you do it and how much time I must spend at my desk to prove that I'm actually doing it." I'm not at my desk right now, and I'm going to the mall because I need to fulfill whatever I need to fulfill. I've picked up, you are coming back. I'm like, let's go. I'm not going to hold that against you when your performance comes around. When we're having the performance discussion, I know that you are performing at the level at which you are expecting to perform, that I expect you to perform, because I'm also liberating you to not think that my being at my desk consistently also translates to me performing, because that's not what it is. As a result, that's what I have taken, rightly or wrongly, across the board. Because you do find that sometimes you will report into someone who it's a bum on the seat. That's what they translate into productivity, which is not necessarily the case. Me sitting at my desk does not necessarily mean I'm being productive. But if you liberate me to perform at my optimal, I will be able to do that whether or not I'm at my desk. The roles I've typically performed always require me to be elsewhere, not at my desk, because I need to gather information and then come and translate it into a single document, for example. So having someone who understood that very early on in my career is what has then helped propel me forward, and to realize that, oh, okay, as long as we're athletes in our own right. How you actually have been performing off the court will translate into a game. Are you going and shooting your free throws, practicing your layups, running around when nobody else is there? Because what really counts is what you're bringing when you're in the game. You're like, oh, Lynn has been working on her free throws. Sasha's been working on her three-pointers. Kelly has been working on how she guards the man when they are playing. Why are you marking a man? You're marking another player. But I mean, it's just that whole thing where it's not what you are doing while I am looking at you as your line manager. Because I mean, again, how many direct reports do you have? Will you have eyes to look at all of them? You just need to trust their output, trust their delivery, and trust that at the level they're doing what they're doing, they will do what they're meant to. If you're in a strategic role, why are you operationally focused? You've got to trust that the people who are in that role are grooming you are grooming them to do what they're meant to do. And at some point, they'll also be in your role. So if I am constantly having this micromanager on my case, that's all I've ever known, I think I normalize micromanaging. But what you don't realize is that in doing that, you stifle certain aspects. But if you leave the person to be, they will be the best version of themselves in whatever it is. And this work from home right now, that's all you can actually do. You do not see me every day, but you trust that I'm actually delivering. And what we have seen is people have actually stepped up. Their performance is on another level. The output, the quality, everything is stepped up. And you learn to manage. I mean, it's been almost a year. So everyone has found what works, what doesn't work. If you are, and also to appreciate, again, taking it back to the female construct, just because you're not a mom doesn't mean you don't have a niece or a nephew who you want to go and watch playing cricket. So why does that only allow you as a mother or as a father, like, oh no, I'm going to go watch my boy, or I'm going to go watch my girl? An aunt and an uncle should also be able to do that, because at the end of the day, we're all being present in this child's life. When they're in a professional league, or even when they are working themselves, they will always have that thing at the back of their mind that my family has got my back.
So, I would like to take a bit of a change of pace, because in the beginning, when I asked whether independent women are a threat to masculinity, I think you all emphatically answered yes. We've spoken about some of the challenges that comes within the corporate workspace. How does this translate in your romantic relationships with men, insofar as how you need to navigate masculinity in all its fragileness and all its biases and patriarchy, all of that stuff that we've spoken to, given your own personal journey and knowing what you know now, how does that play out?
So from my perspective, it all starts with the first interaction. So when you actually meet someone, you already have either, and you can tell or you pick it up from how they interact with you or how they talk to you as in a group, and especially in a group setting. And that already, I think for me, I've developed certain ways where I can pick up to go, this is a person I can interact with, or this is a person I can't interact with. Like, you will either have an issue or something with the fact that I will speak my mind. I have a perspective, and already from just that first interaction, I can tell you yay or nay. So I think I've guarded myself, and I have that ability to now actually just see it from the get-go, to go, is this person willing to actually have honest conversations? Because there's a lot of humility and acknowledgement that comes with, this is where we're coming from, all of us, and these are the realities of our lives, but we can work through this. So from the onset, I either realize whether you're someone who we can work something with or we can't work something with. And that's how I guess I go about predetermining and hopefully, going through that whole process.
So where I feature in this particular topic, I have to say it's been an evolution. When I look at myself when I was in my 20s, early 30s, late 30s, and now beginning my 40s, there was a shift from what's expected of me and how I should act because of the expectations placed on me, which tells you already how far removed I was from my own truth, to where on the flip side, I'm more in tune with who I am and what my truth is. Sometimes I'm still working on some aspects, but I'm much closer to, actually, I don't agree with what I used to go with in my 20s. I'm more in tune with who I am now, and this is how I wish to interact. So it can be a first meeting where they're talking to me, or if it's someone I'm interested in, I'm watching how they're talking to other people around them. Or if it's someone who's referred to me, or they referred to me by a friend who I trust implicitly, which is not always the case in my case, but it's important. Who do they know? Who are their friends? Because if I happen to know who they are, who their friends are, I'd have an idea of what they carry with them. Maybe not their actual baggage, but what kind of perceptions they possibly carry with them. And of course, my background, I've got a Christian background, I've got a sporting background again, I've worked in different fields, and I'm aware of the South African context of cultural norms in Black societies. And then, so the ultimate for me is, do they vibe with me on a spiritual level? Can we hold a conversation? And from that first interaction, do I really like them? Was it someone I could talk to on a one-on-one basis, in a group of girlfriends, in a mixed group? All those things come into play without me even thinking, because they're at the back of my mind. But more so, does my spirit, feel happy and at peace with this interaction? And those things come into play. Like, how do they treat me as a woman? It's part of it. Do they respect me? Do they hear me? Do they think what I say is worth exploring further? Because that spells interest. But I'm also, on a personal level, I like to give people chances. And that's where sometimes I fail, because maybe I give them too many chances. But that's just me. I want to see who you are. You're comfortable with me. I need to give you space. And if eventually they abuse it, well, then we have to take certain steps. Yeah, so that's my point of view. Thanks.
Thank you, Sashia. So for me, I think there's a certain attractiveness to indoor, like to assertion, like someone who knows that I'm a man. And so for me, there's a certain attraction. And like I said earlier on, I'm willing to take a step back and be led by you. But provided that you are able to lead and you've got that thing that that I find very attractive. And with that also comes it's a takes two to tango kind of situation where we have to click on a certain level. We have to understand, okay, this is where I stand, this is what I expect. And if you want me to respect you or to submit to you, like what you also said earlier on, earn it, but also continue to give me a reason to respect you and give me a reason to submit to you. So for me, I think that's why I'm still single. But yeah, that's me.
Oh, yeah. So for me, a very big thing is to be me, to be exactly who I am. And my girls can attest to it. Lynn constantly challenges me, like, but you are who you are, why must that ever change? Why must that ever be modified? And in that sense, you also, like, when I sit down retrospectively, I realize that, I've been in quite a number of toxic relationships for a variety of reasons. But something that always stood out to me is when I'm questioned for who I am. Why is that a thing? Why can't I be me? There's no definition of a woman. There's no boundary that you must stick within. Give me a boundary, and I'll always step out because I want to explore and I want to know and I want to assess. But never hold me against me. That I cannot deal with. And I'm very grateful to my friends for also reminding me that and showing me that when they start to see that in this certain scenario, I'm stepping out. I mean, to Lynn's point earlier, she's like, okay, when we're interacting initially, especially if it's in a public setting, I will be paying attention to the kind of things you say. But friends like Lynn also pay attention to how you carry yourself in that setting with the said man and be like, this is still my friend, or no, my friend is starting to deviate, and start to understand. And I mean, bearing in mind, again, people in your life will always experience you in a different way, but there's always that golden thread of who you really are. And if the essence of who you are cannot show up in a relationship, you actually should not be in it. I get there's compromise, I get there's whatever they say, your sacrifice and whatnot, but never, ever, ever sacrifice who you are. Always be true to the person that you are. Flawed as you are exactly the person that you are. And I mean, there's certain things where you'll be like, okay, fine, yes, I know in this situation I was wrong, I know this is what I did. Always be open to correction and to becoming better thereafter. But never be open to the toxicity or to being pulled down or to being degraded for the person that you are. And sadly, that tends to be who we sometimes allow ourselves to become. And my thing is, walk in front of the mirror. Do you recognize the person looking back? And I'm not talking physically. Only you can have that candid conversation with yourself. And if you can be like, okay, she looks like me, acts like me, but isn't quite me. That's when you really need to start to dig deep and be like, perhaps maybe not, you know.
I like what my friends have said, because what I see as a golden thread is don't sacrifice who you are, don't sacrifice what you prefer, and be open to growth, but also, counter and measure and check, interrogate the choices you make, because ultimately all the choices we make in relationships will affect us and will affect others in turn who we care deeply about. So I'm actually very grateful for this segment, I have to say. I even had to do a little summary. But the theme is, who are you? And you're willing to fight for that person while being a great partner at the same time, because that's where you can show up as your best, given the space, given the whatever you have to offer. So thanks, ladies. Thank you.
Well, you guys have pretty much annihilated my next question.